does something. Reset it. Okay, so the many joys of working in Windows. Okay, so you can see it's been kind of a sunny day here. We're getting towards the end of this run of fair weather here in Texas, and you can see this on the map here. Southerly flow coming up from the Gulf. And the second question is, what about the moisture? Well, we see 60s dew points right along the coast. The 60-degree isotherm, not quite to Houston. It is up to the Austin area, almost to the Hill Country, almost to San Antonio, kind of in this area right here. So it's beginning to slowly make its way northwestward. And we have 90-degree readings, 93 there at Midland, Odessa, and we can see the arrival of a front into northwest Texas and the Panhandle. So there's that right there. And 50s and 60s back behind that. Let me scroll that down. Okay, so there's those 50s and 60s just up to the north. How does it look in the Four Corners and Intermountain region? Pretty warm. Lots of 70s, 77 at Albuquerque, 75 at Utah. But we go further out west, and we can see the appearance of a colder air mass, westerly winds. So that's going to be a good example of a front in the Great Basin area. You can see 72 at Wendover, dropping rapidly to 53, 48 there at Winnemucca. So the front is making its way through Nevada, even though it's kind of hard to tell out in California. These fronts can be very difficult to find, and that's the reason we rely on thickness charts. So we're going to be looking for the low-level jet to set up. And one thing I was wondering about 10 minutes ago, I didn't really get to set this up, but I was wondering what the strongest low-level jet has ever been like in Oklahoma. So I'm going to see if I can figure that out. I'm going to start up Argonne here. And before I do that, I need to start as administrator on that window. So we're going to try to find out the strongest low-level jet. And we're bringing up Argonne here real quick, because this has to run in the background. And so let me get this going. Select random or select wildcard from upper, where WMO 72357, that's going to be Norman, and level is 850, or pressure, and wind speed is greater than 70. Let's say 65 maybe there. And let me see if that looks good. Oh. Okay, while that runs in the background, let's get on with our presentation here. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the low-level jet. As we know, that's kind of a nocturnal feature. And I figured I'd show you this very interesting graphic here. This shows the balance of forces during the day up at the levels of maybe 1 kilometer off the ground. So we can see the pressure gradient force that's kind of constant right there. And as the wind flows from south to north, it's being acted on by friction, by the thermals coming up from the ground and interacting with the flow up at 1 kilometer. So we end up with the wind kind of slowed down a bit. This is very dominant right here. And as a result, the Coriolis force also dies down, because if we look at the equation for Coriolis force, that's dependent on wind velocity. So what we end up with here is the wind acting as a subgeostrophic wind. So it's a little bit slower and it curves a little bit to the left of where we normally expect to see it. Okay, so the wind is slow. It curves a little bit to the left of where we usually see it. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit more southeasterly. Okay, let's see what happens at night. The wind decouples. We get that inversion developing between the surface and 1 kilometer. And as a result, the friction term drops way down. Almost, well, I wouldn't say zero, but it drops down significantly, and that kind of releases the wind. So suddenly the wind is moving much faster than the gradient would normally have it moving at. So we end up with a supergeostrophic wind. And the Coriolis force, since it's dependent on velocity, it begins acting on that and starts recurving it back to the southwest here. And it starts slowing down the wind. So it starts off supergeostrophic earlier in the evening, and by morning it's the balance of forces has kind of been restored. Okay, guys, I think we're up now. I think we're running. We had to switch YouTube servers. I guess one of their servers was getting hammered there, so we're on the other one. Hopefully things are up and running. Let me know if you... Okay, everybody says we're good. Fred says he was cursed when he showed the equation for Coriolis force. Yeah. Okay, I think we're good here. Okay, let's continue. This shows an example of the average wind up at 750 millibars, the low-level jet level, from June and July of 2006 here. And this shows kind of like the diurnal nocturnal curve here. So this shows us there's the subgeostrophic flow. We're getting the interaction of the low-level jet with the thermals rising off the ground. So we end up with kind of a slower velocity right there. And you see it curving around here. And then it goes supergeostrophic. We get that acceleration. Let me center this a little bit. There we go. So we end up with that acceleration. And you can see by midnight, we're showing an average flow here of about 20 knots out of the south. So much stronger, and you see now it recurving as the Coriolis force kind of takes effect there, and then we see the balance of forces kind of restored there. So that's kind of what's going on, and this is good information to know when you're dealing with storm out of helicity aloft, because that's going to moderate the shear as we get nighttime take effect. So there's that acceleration. That's the first thing you're going to see right there as you get that decoupling of the low-level flow from the upper-level flow. Anyway, so that's a little bit about the low-level jet, and maybe we'll try to cover some more of that in the days ahead as we have this run-up to this action from the west. Okay, let me bring up my other charts here. Oh yeah, we were going to take a look out in Abilene. We do have some showers out there right now, and this is a quick look at them. This looks kind of like a little split, doesn't it? You can see the weaker intensities here, the stronger ones up to the north. In fact, this looks kind of like a left mover too. Let's see what's going on here. Let's animate this. I've only got a few frames here, but I can see that one. That's moving that way. This one is moving more this way. And let's check out if this one has any... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still up at 4.1 degrees. Left over from yesterday. Okay. But anyway, we do see this is a left mover. Stronger gradient on the north side, weaker on the south side. And as we go up to higher tilts, got a slightly older frame in there, but you can see that the storm is fairly vertically stacked. There's the higher intensity core right there. It kind of stacks a little bit downwind, but it's not overhanging this area here, so this is not really a severe storm. And this is more of a multi-cell complex here near Sweetwater and Abilene. We go up to higher levels, and there we just see that tilting down shear, and there's the strongest top right there up at 38,000 feet. And that's part of this cluster here. So again, kind of non-severe. This has got kind of the look of maybe a little bit of wind outflow maybe. So maybe a little bit of gusty wind in there, but yeah, not much else going on there. So there's where those storms are, and a few more down in the San Angelo area. And we'll take a look at the skew-T and see what might be causing this. So we definitely want to look at changes in the run-up to this storm system coming in from the west. Here's the 500 millibar flow. Big trough off the California coast. So that's coming up on Ron Chalfant's area. There's the ridge, getting some warming there in the northern plains. And we can see that the flow here in Texas rather weak. So that's another thing that's helping to keep the severity of these storms in the Abilene area kind of on the low side. 15-knot winds there, 500 millibars. And unless we have a subtropical jet aloft, there's may not be much help there. There we go. There's the infrared satellite imagery. So we see the next system coming on shore right there. Remember, we had a front coming through the Nevada area, and you can see some pretty good showers back behind that, right there in the Winnemucca Battle Mountain area. And then further off to the east, you can see the showers right there around Abilene. Not much of an evidence of a subtropical jet in here. Usually that's going to be kind of associated with some cirrus. Not really seeing that. Okay, here's our thermal analysis. Polar front is going to be running like that from about Virginia down to Arkansas, Texas, and then up the Rockies. And here comes our next system through Nevada. And we can see that that's made progress through California, even though in the San Joaquin Valley we see 70s. So this is another example of how you get some confusing results when you're looking at the surface data. Let me see if I can shift this over to California so we can get a look at that. Okay, here comes California. Probably need to bring that a little bit further north. There we go. And we'll bring up the surface data, and you can see lots of 70s there in the San Joaquin Valley, and even southerly winds. Pretty common all up and down the valley here. But if we go down to the Mojave Desert, we have lots of strong westerlies right here. So kind of confusing pattern going on. IFR conditions along the coast. So it's actually when we go to the thickness that things kind of resolve themselves, and we can see that the cold front has made some fairly good progress there through California and Nevada. So that's coming for the Rockies and ultimately for Texas here. And then the code pool, that'll be following also. Let's look at soundings and look at Fort Worth. Maybe we can see what's causing some of those showers and thunderstorms. Fort Worth sounding for about an hour ago, showing a pretty good subsidence inversion. Not a super strong cap here, but that's enough to keep things kind of blocked off. And possibly when we go out to Midland, we can see a little bit of weakness in that capping and maybe a little bit of moisture. Don't have any sounding there for Midland, so I'm going to back that up to 12Z and see what it looked like this morning. It's not working, so I'm going to go over to UCAR. UCAR sounding. And here we go. We got this morning's sounding. It's like some fairly good lapse rates right there from 850 on up. We tend to look for the cap in this layer right here, and we can see not much of a cap. Some fairly warm conditions up above, up around 850 though, and a little bit of moisture here. But the moisture feeding that stuff around Sweetwater at 12Z. That's going to be down in this area right here. So the storms are right here, and they're being fed by moisture from San Antonio. Unfortunately, we don't have any soundings in this area. That would be a huge help. We do have Del Rio, though. And Del Rio sounding for this morning shows pretty good moisture there, about 8 grams per kilogram. Maybe not great moisture, but we're talking about 50-degree dew points, but certainly enough to get some thunderstorms going in the Midland area, east of Midland. So I'm going to take this 8 grams per kilogram and move that up to Midland. So we'll lift that with maybe 88-degree temperatures, and we can see not much capping, but some very high bases. And some fairly decent instability, but it's very high up. Okay. Let's see here. We'll stop here on this 850 chart. And here we can see that temperature contrast there between Nevada and California. That's a good signature there that we have the cold front moving through that area right there. And then we can see the other part of the 850 front over Texas and back over Colorado. So that's another chart you can use there. Anyway, let's move on ahead and look at the forecast. And I think before we do that, we'll check and see if that norm and low-level jet data is in. Yeah, I got a little bit of data here. Looks like we picked up some winds out of the south at 77 knots. On April 27th of 1996. Any idea what was happening that date? I was in Korea, so I have no idea. Let's see what other results we've got. We've got 72 out of the south, 72 and then 79. That was on February 24th of 2001, December 23rd of 2008. Be aware that there could be some bad data mixed in here. That sometimes is an issue. Then we've got southwest winds at 66 on March 22nd of 2011 and March 3rd of 2015. So those are some more dates to look at. So anyway, I'm going to take a look at that after we go off the air, and if I see anything interesting, we'll bring that up tomorrow. But some of you guys You might have an idea what happened on those days right there. Looks interesting. Anyway, let's take a look at our forecast. In fact, I think we need to look at the dynamics before we move on to that. Let's check that out. You can see things are getting busy off the California coast. The main low-level jet located right there, and that's supporting that frontal system out over Nevada right there. First big shot of energy coming in tomorrow into the Southern California area around San Diego. And then overnight, that'll be moving into the Rockies, Arizona. And we're starting to really pick up the flow out of New Mexico on the high plains there. So by evening, 0Z on Thursday, you can see very good dynamics coming into this region right there. So we're going to watch this area right here. And then overnight, that'll be pulling into Texas. By Friday night, we can see that's coming in East Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas, and then that's going to move quickly eastward over the weekend. And then we've got our next wave coming in for Sunday on the Great Plains. There it is right there. Working on the Panhandle on Sunday. Here comes another wave on Wednesday. Actually, I'm going to call that Tuesday. Another wave rotating around for Thursday. So we've got one after the other. So the main question here is where our moisture is going to recover, where and when. Because that's a pretty good frequency of waves coming through Texas right there. So a lot to look at there. So let's go to the NAM and look at our first storm coming in. Okay, this is for right now. We see the main system coming across Nevada right there. We can see the thickness starting to pile up in this region. So that's the front working its way into the Rockies. And we see that coming through New Mexico early on Thursday. There's the cold front right there. Then later in the day, we see the NAM breaking out some showers in the Dodge City area. And a few more down along the Texas-New Mexico border right there. So this is the start of the dynamics coming out of New Mexico. And we can see after dark, we see a squall line coming together along the Caprock that moves into North Texas overnight, and then reforms during the day on Thursday along I-35 and in East Texas. So possibly some severe weather coming up for Thursday, or I'm sorry, on Friday in the East Texas. Possibly some cold air, some I'm losing the words here. The upper level, the cold pool. Yeah, cold thunderstorms associated with the cold pool showers, possibly around Childress right there. A little bit of a brain failure there. And then we get the main line coming across the south on Saturday and into Sunday right there. And we get to the end of the NAM run. Here comes the next system. So one issue I did want to show you, though let's take a look at the dew point on Thursday for Texas. Here's Thursday morning. These are the 60-degree dew points right here. And we can see during the day towards 18Z and 21Z, we can see some weaknesses here in the dew points in the Texas Panhandle. and in the Childress area. So possibly what we're seeing here is some erosion of the moisture. It looks like our moisture is not quite together here. And it looks like we even see a little bit of veering there. Maybe early on right here. We see the flow slightly more backed in this area. So based on this, I would probably be targeting the Midland Hobbs area rather than this area up north. So we see there dew points in the lower 50s in this area, dew points in the upper 50s down around Midland. So that's what the NAM is trying to tell us. Things do pull together after dark, though. And one other chart we can look at, and it's really great Pivotal Weather has this, because these charts are very hard to find. Dew points at 850, dew points at 925. A lot of sites have relative humidity up at those levels, and that's helpful for clouds, but not for severe weather forecasting. I like to see this, and I don't know why weather websites don't carry that. But Pivotal Weather does have that, and this helps us to show some of the weaknesses in the moisture here at 925. So here's 925 at 12Z on Thursday, 15, 18, 21, and 0Z. So there's that, and then at 850, we advance up to Thursday. And we see the tops of the moist layer here at 850, dew points in the 40s in this area right here. So you can actually use this data at 925 and 850, or your dew points. You can use that to kind of fill in what's happening on your soundings for this day. So even though you can set a sounding on here and kind of look at it, like I've done here, you can use these maps to kind of look at the horizontal extent of the moisture across your region. So this is actually pretty important to look at. Okay, let's head into the forecast. Let me set up the GFS here for later this week. And let me take a look at the chat. I've kind of gone over a lot of material here. Okay, let's see here. We got Sue M. and Andrew and Grant Leahy. A new name there from Kansas City. Kevin McKinney, Ryan Toomeys, Brian Harp, Jason Boggs, Victor Cabot, Ron Chalfant checking in, Jeremy Mattingly, Fun with Tech. Seems like our names, we've got so many names it's going to be hard to go over all this, but let me check out the discussion here. Ryan says East Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina under the gun. Jason Boggs says low-level jet will likely play a role in Thursday evening storms. Yep, definitely. Any word on that tornado warning in California? Sorry, I missed that. We did see the front come through today, but I've not been able to look at all the data here. Tornado warning in Northern California. Okay. And looks like Fun with Tech mentions that that's not confirmed. SPC mentioned a tornado possibility in North California in last night's outlook. Okay. And Jason Boggs says, just some good rain for us in the Texas Panhandle on Thursday. I agree with Tim, and my latest target for Thursday is Hobbs, New Mexico. And Rick mentions funnel clouds only in California. Okay, let's head on to the forecast, and we'll look at the GFS, and we'll see what that's painting for the next week or so. There's Thursday. We can see the system coming out of the Rockies. And the GFS has things blowing up around midnight right there in the Texas Panhandle. Nothing early on, but the GFS is more of a synoptic scale model. I would probably be relying on the NAM for the small scale details here. So anyway, there goes our squall line eastward across North Texas overnight, and then reforming in East Texas on Friday. So severe potential from there to Louisiana and Arkansas. And we see that press eastward. Then here comes system number 2 on Sunday. GFS going for severe thunderstorms and showers in North Texas, southern Oklahoma there. Most of that going north. Here comes the next round on Tuesday. It's going forward along the Caprock and along I-35 here. So that's going to be the time of max heating right there. So GFS going for Junction up to Abilene and up to Childress. Okay, then we get behind that system, the main cold front, kind of to the south. This is all wrap around up to the north. Looks like this gets going again on Friday. So another possible outbreak for the 31st and the 1st in the southeast. Here comes the next round on the 5th. But in this case, it looks a little bit cold. I think we're kind of on the back side. We can see the stronger thickness gradient off the coast right there. And then we get to the end of the GFS run and bringing in some cold air into the northwest U.S. right there. Looks like a bit of a storm along the east coast, so we've got quite a bit coming up for the next 7 to 10 days. So I think that'll end it for tonight, and we'll likely run some special forecasting sessions on Thursday. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, I appreciate you all watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks.